Just in case it isn't obvious, I kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas. I know, completely unexpected. According to my, not love, but my likings to Nightmare Before Christmas, and after I made Emily, I decided to make the second girl that I think, yeah, Emily and Sally might be the only girls I ever had a crush on. So, I made Sally, or more or less an interpretation of Sally. I didn't want to make her as accurate as Emily, and I decided to fuse Jack and Sally a little bit more. So, I hope you enjoy it.
As the insanely intelligent person that I am, I just discovered recently that if you don't brush out your yarn, but instead separate it into its segments, you get quite a nice wavy texture. I know this is something that generations of doll customizers already found out, but doesn't matter. So I first just rooted the part and then divided everything into sections. After protecting the part with some cling film, I took out my soft pastels and choose my colors, and the weapon of choice was a palette mainly in the green and blue section because I used the most obvious doll, Frankie Stein, for recreating Sally, and yeah, she has a grayish, greenish skin tone, and all of her colors are far more muted than I will use them, or than the ones I will use. Yes, I think that is about right. Um, but I was fine with making her a little bit more colorful than the original muted her. I first shaded the hairline, not the hairline, and the eyes. The hairline was more in a greenish color, and the eyes just blue. And yeah, first round was basically just shading her as detailed as I could, and I just went with the flow. I had a little Sally figure standing there. You may see her arms. Um, but I didn't focus too much on doing the shading as it was on the original figure because there was not that much of it. And though I really was all about the interpretation of Sally and more make it my own and just have it read quite well as Sally, I wasn't bothered to care too much about making it as similar as possible. The only thing I really focused on was getting her stitches right and more get them into the right area than really getting them exact. As soon as I was finished with giving her her lashes, and yeah, then took out my acrylic paint and covered her eyes with some white for obvious reasons, the white of her eyes, I was quite happy with her. And maybe I'm strange, but I think just face up wise, she turned out quite well. Not to say that she's one of my favorite face ups ever. Surprise! I struggled quite a lot with the eyes because I decided to give her an iris. Originally, she only has pupils, and yeah, as we saw on my Emily doll, it fits the aesthetic, but it looks strange. So I went with some pupils? No, irises and pupils. And I tried to make them as light as possible. And yeah, again, I have to say I was really happy with how they turned out. I went a little bit back and forth between blues and grays, and in the end, I used the watercolor effect of the watercolor pencils. Surprise, surprise. By just wetting the tip in some water and try to make the gradient a little bit more pretty. And then I took out a brush which was just a little bit moist. I know everyone loves the word. And removed a little bit of the color again, and that was quite a nice effect. And yeah, then it was just drawing on the pupils, giving her some light reflections, and the basic or the face up was done, and in my opinion was looking very well. Yes, I am proud of her, and this time I will say it. So I am proud of her. Thanks for listening. After separating yarn for a whole day and then gluing it into wefts, I was able to glue them onto her head, and couldn't be bothered to glue them on with anything else than hot glue, because at this point I was quite annoyed. But I really like her hair in the end. And yeah, then I just let it cool down, brushed it a little bit, or combed it a little bit, and yeah, just made a very, very simple hairdo by doing something I do quite regular on my dolls, which is just twisting some strands in the front of it and pinning them back at the back of the hat. Ta-da. Looks like my English today is advanced as nothing else again. Wow. And normally I can't be bothered to shade the body or do anything with it, but this time I had to because Sally has her stitches, and Sally needs her stitches because Sally's stitches make Sally Sally. Yeah, a lot of different things too, but the stitches are important. Isn't it interesting how I annoy myself today? Yeah, and then I took out the epoxy clay and sculpted the little bow tie thing that Jack wears, and yeah, Jack's face, because I thought it would look cute to have her wear, yeah, kind of a Jack mask, but not on her face, but in her hair, because for obvious reason. There was something about me being proud about the face up. You remember? Though these pieces are made out of epoxy clay, they need to dry overnight. Or for 24 hours. I don't really know. Normally, I just wait as long as I am patient enough, and if it's dry to the touch, I'm fine with it. And though I use the rest of the epoxy clay to just make ice or take a mold and push it into the mold, which is for ice. Um, I always have a test piece to take out and look at, and if this doesn't get an indent if I try to make one with my nail. I'm fine to just go on. It was quite tricky for me to sculpt the. Yeah, I don't really know. Are they stitches or are they something else? Are they meant to be his teeth? I don't really know. I made them into stitches too. And if they are teeth, the apology is quite simple. I combined Jack's face with the stitches of Sally. You just need to come up with a random excuse that could work. Isn't that great? Maybe don't take this as a life advice. After this was dried, I sanded the back a little bit and removed the aluminium foil. Yes, that is what it's called. And yeah, then just put on some color. First the white and then some black details and white again. With the bow tie, I just hot glued a magnet on the back. And with that, it was quite easy to hold it because I used all the magnets I had, stacked them together, and just put it on there. Quite easy. And yeah, with that, I colored the bow tie too. And though I wasn't sure at the moment, I looked up Jack and saw that he had some stripes on the bow tie, so I had to paint this on too. And yeah, though I am an insanely impatient person from time to time, I took out the hot glue, some needles, and lace and ribbons, tied the lace and the ribbons together, put some needles through it, and glued it into the hat before the color was dry. So when I tried to put everything together, it came off again, and I had to reglue it. Not a complete disaster, but yeah, being patient could pay off more. Ta-da! Maybe this is more the life advice than the other thing earlier. Now it is time to show you what I made first, the dress. So this footage is quite blurry, so I hope you will survive. First I measured out how long I wanted it in the front and in the back, and then just combined everything with a curve. Cut this out of black striped fabric 2 times, put it together in the front, and yes, I reuse an old shirt I had. Why not? And then it was time for the main attraction that you can't really see. But yeah, I took out 4 different fabrics that are more or less in the color that Sally has in her dress. And with a black Sharpie, I just drew on the different patterns because I couldn't be bothered to buy different fabrics for just this project. I tried to get the patterns as close to the ones that Sally has on her dress as I was able, but some of them I just winged because no one will see them. And after I was finished with all the patterns, I cut out a stripe from everything and then just cut out random shapes that were as sloppy or as uneven as possible. Because I had this idea to, yeah, put them together kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. So I just took out the pattern piece and stitched it together, or first pinned it together and then just sew over everything to make the inside of the dress. That is why I already said you won't see that much of it. So, and because Sally is a ragdoll and everything is quite stitched together, I thought this could look quite nice, and it did in the end. I had to check a lot of times that I had the right, yeah, that this piece was like the pattern. So if you ever will do something like this, make sure that you really have the right form in it. Because, yeah, though it should be the inside of the dress, it had to be quite accurate. While I was sewing this, I sewed the stripes together that I took out earlier from the fabric and pinned it down to the black side of the outer side of the garment, and every segment I tried to pin down in different ruffles so that it really looks like everything is patched together and is from another dress, just to resemble the very ragdoll theme. Then I sew everything together, turned it inside out, and pinned the inside down a little bit so that it won't be that bulky, and I pinned a ruffle on there just to give it a little bit more extra floof. And this I stitched down by hand. For the bodice, I sewed two fabric pieces together and then just traced the pattern onto it. Yeah, and after cutting out the sleeves, I sewed everything together by hand, and though I quite hate sewing by hand, I did all of this off camera while watching some TV, because I couldn't be bothered to sit this long in front of the camera. Then I put the hat back on the body, dressed her, and took out some shoes. I think they are originally from Dracula. Um, yeah, I struggled quite a lot because I tried something, but I deleted it, so we won't mention it. And with that, I put on the accessories, the brooch or the bow tie just with another magnet that I slipped into the dress. And with that, she was finished. So I hope you enjoy the video and you like her. And until next time, bye.